So there's a lot that goes into logo design, but in this video, I wanted to cover some of my basic processes or steps with you and things not to do. Now, these are just general tips that I use or think of when I'm designing a logo. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't break the rules for some reason, but you have to really have a good reason. So let's start out with the process first. If I'm working with a client, I'm going to definitely create a design brief after I've sat down and interviewed with them, asked them what were they looking for, what is their business like, what is their logo doing for them now that's good, what is it doing for them that they don't like and they want to change, or if they have a brand new company or whatnot and they just need a new logo. What is your audience? What is this logo going to be used on? Is it going to be used on just stationery like a letterhead or an envelope and business card, or is it also going to be on clothing, on hats, on the side of a truck, on packaging, all kinds of different places that a logo can be used, and that'll change the way that I design some things. Once I've went through the entire design brief with them and kind of this is my game plan, what I want to do, then it takes some research. So let's say this was for a fictional company called Night Watch Surveillance Systems, and they want to have an owl as a part of their logo. Well, we all know what owls look like, but most of us probably can't just, bust out the coolest looking owl ever in a 2-minute sketch. And so what you need to do is start visually research the competitors, research other owl logos, and make sure that you're not creating something that is too derivative, and then you're making something unique that people can remember this company by. So as we go through, I usually start with looking at actual images, if I can, of the inspiration piece, and then I'll also come here and look at clip art. Obviously, these don't make any sense for a surveillance system, but it helps to see how things were simplified kind of in vector format. And if you actually change this from owl clip art to owl vector, you're going to be able to see a little bit more sophistication when you're looking here. So here we see kind of more stylized, mature versions of owls. And then I might come in here and do owl logo and look at what's working and what doesn't. And obviously some of these are going to work, like this face would work really well with a surveillance system. But if you look at something like this just doesn't make sense for a surveillance system. But I would never want to make anything look like these logos. I still want to have an owl, and this helps to give me some inspiration. But if it looks like any of these logos, first of all, that's a copyright violation. But second of all, they can't then claim that their logo is unique and represents them. So what I do after I look at all of these images and kind of get inspiration is I close them all down. I don't look at them anymore, and I start to sketch on a notepad or a sketch pad and just start trying to visualize in my head what I want this owl to look like. So I don't have my sketches up here and I didn't scan them in, but this is an instance of somebody drawing an epic logo, and I think this was way back in 79. It's from some blog, but this is kind of what you're going for. It's just sort of getting your thoughts out there. Nobody really has to see this. Nobody's going to judge you for it. So just try to get as many versions and thumbnail versions of this logo out there as you can. So once you get to that point, there are a couple things you need to know about creating a logo. First, there are things you don't do. First, never ever use stock graphics, obviously, because those are not your own creations, so you can't then claim that they are. And this makes it, again, so that their logo is not unique. So never ever use stock graphics. 2, don't use photos. Logos are not photorealistic. They are vectors so that they're easy to reproduce at various sizes. So you should never have a photo in your logo. 3, never make it too detailed. Because while this logo or this owl looks really cool right now, it would look great if it's on the side of a billboard, but it's too complex. And the more complex it is, the harder it is to remember, so to speak. And at the same time, if this were really small on a business card, this would not reproduce well. In addition, let's say they wanted to have this embroidered on their employee t-shirts or whatnot. Well, this is going to be almost impossible to embroider, so don't make it too detailed. And then as we come down here, Couple more. The next one is don't use too many colors, because remember, every time you add a color, it is going to add more cost to a project. And be careful that you're not adding gradients and drop shadows and any of those kind of effects, because they don't reproduce well for logos either. So make it flat color, and I would say 1 or 2 is really good. 3, you're kind of pushing it, but if you really have a good reason for 3, you have to have a good reason for having more than 2, in my opinion. So this one can be reduced to 2 different shades of brown very easily. And let's just keep going through here. Don't create a generic version we saw in elementary school. If this is a silhouette of an owl that we see all the time, again, it's not unique, it's boring, it's not memorable. And if we see something like this, this is not going to work for night watch surveillance systems. It is going to give the impression to people that this is not a serious company. It's not a company I want to trust my family safety to. So that's why you don't want to do something like this for that type of an industry. But if this were, let's say, an owl for an elementary school, maybe that'll work. But again, it's not memorable because this is something we see all the time. Next one, create layout problems. So this is obviously way too detailed, but at the same time, this branch means that the logo always has to be on the right side of the page because it's cut off right here. And so if I wanted it to be the left side of the page on letterhead, it's not going to work. And then this stuff is just, again, too detailed and wouldn't look good when it was smaller. And then I can't figure out with this where I need to actually put my text. So a couple other things, create nonsensical associations. So there are actually a couple things wrong with this one as a logo, and I just borrowed these from the internet, so this one may not have been used as a logo at all, but we've got some gradient fade out for the blush here, so that's not flat color. Then we have some drop shadow, same problem there, and you can see the gradient kind of in the forehead of this owl here. So this kind of stuff wouldn't work in terms of color, but at the same time, this might be a really cute logo for well, let's a business that's cute, but this is a business about surveillance systems and high tech and security, and so this doesn't make any kind of sense with our actual company that we're designing for. And so the last problem to talk about is don't use disproportionate elements that don't fit together as equals. First of all, this is a horrible font for this. This is called Blade Runner, so it doesn't make any sense, and this is not for our Night Watch surveillance systems, but pretend this owl is for WISE tutorials. This font just doesn't make any sense. And then in terms of the disproportionate elements, you're trying to use these as kind of like Lego building blocks, and they should sort of fit together. So this is super small and this is super big. If I were to make this all small so that it fit on a business card, you would not be able to read this. So instead, or I see a lot of people doing something like that. And so they think, okay, that's going to work. Well, again, if I were to take this and make it super small for a business card, it's almost impossible to read that WISE tutorial. So you have to be very careful with the proportions that you have with your element. So that's where this comes into play, where it's kind of, again, like Lego building blocks. We can come in here and make this a lot bigger and maybe make this a lot smaller. So there we have WISE tutorials. Now that looks like everything's small, but as soon as we make this bigger, maybe we can put that down here and make that a lot bigger. And again, that font is horrible, but you get what I'm talking about. So we're trying to fit it in. So see, there's already some problems here that I don't like. And it's just because it's horrible font, so I might as well just pick a new font. So let's just go with something simple. We'll try impact for right now. And because we have green and gray and brown and orange, there's a lot of colors going on here. What you can do is just sample one of the colors. So actually, let's sample the green. And now we're going to try and fit it in there so that we're kind of making an implied rectangle, and this is going to be a lot easier for us to work with in terms of placement on a page because it's a little bit closer together. So let's go ahead and reduce the line spacing and make that a little bit smaller. And there we go. So that's going to be a lot easier for us to work with in terms of placement on top of other things or on coffee cups or on a hat or whatever. It's really easy to read. So this color scheme is matching as well. So this logo is really starting to shape up. In the next video about logo design, we're going to look at our actual Nightwatch Surveillance Systems logo, and we're going to go through all these steps of trying to fit these things together as puzzle pieces, and a couple things you can do in terms of the layout and the font size and the color to really make your logo refined and ready to go.